Cool, nice to see you, Pete. Um, so yeah, we're going to crack on and talk about the Forest game from Friday night. Good win for you guys. How um, how did you see the game?
Yeah, I think I didn't enjoy it at the time, but with a bit of distance, as is always the case, I think there's there's quite a few positives to take from it. Uh, but yeah, at the time it was just quite a generically stressful 90 minutes or 100 minutes, as every game seems to be this season. Um, but yeah, really good win, two really good goals, um, and a generally dominant performance. Although we did let them back in, I reckon, unnecessarily for large parts of the game, which meant my blood pressure rose unnecessarily high for periods. I think. Yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, I remember you saying, you were quite worried anyway because it was like a really unusual kind of situation for you guys in terms of it was like a Premier League game that you were obviously expected to win, or most people were tipping you to win. Um, and you also got like in those kinds of games, it's like so important to score early, isn't it? Just to literally relieve the pressure. Um, and you got the perfect start. Like you scored after was it 2, 3 minutes?
yeah, it couldn't have started any better. Uh, and actually, for the yeah, so the goal at the start was a great goal. And it was like a one year sort of picking up where he left off at the end of last season, in fine scoring form. He was a real plus point throughout the whole game. To be honest with you, he looks phenomenal. He's just improving game on game. And then for about 20 minutes after that first goal, we were on top. Our tempo was really high. Sheffield United couldn't live with us, and it was going really really well. So yeah, really good start to the game. Good tempo, great atmosphere. Uh, yeah, and I don't know. We turned a little bit foresty after about 20 minutes, and
Mm.
I think it felt a little bit like we lost our heads. We lost our heads a little bit. Give Sheffield United their dues. They were really on top of us with their pressing, and they didn't give us much time in the ball, which is pretty much all they could do. They don't have the personnel to be playing technical, passy football. So they did what they could do really well, and that was make it as tough as possible for us. They didn't give us a lot of time, and so for like the sort of middle third of the match, they kind of rattled us, and we lost our flow. Um, so yeah, there was quite a large chunk of the game where I was getting progressively more frustrated, but yeah, it started really really well.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I guess you mentioned the possession. I just got the possession stats up actually, Pete, because it was something we were talking about, wasn't it? How it was going to be quite unusual, perhaps, to see you guys maybe you know, have more of the ball than your opponent. But actually, looking at it, it looks kind of like it was fairly even. So it was, but it was 50-50 actually overall. So that yeah, did that was that how you saw it, or was that a bit kind of that not necessarily tell the whole story?
It wasn't 50-50 throughout the whole game. I, I think overall it probably was 50-50, but we had like the first 30 minutes. They had from about 30 minutes to about 65 minutes in the second half, and then we took the last part of the match. It ebbed and flowed. It was quite fast paced. It was quite a good watch if you're neutral.
Mm,
Um, it just looked like at one point, when they pegged it back to 1-1. Great goal, by the way, by their new signing Drager.
yeah,
When they
great
pegged it
goal.
back to 1-1, it just looked like we were going to bottle it, and I got pretty miserable for a time, just really frustrated.
You know what, Pete? I think sorry. I think I might have messaged you and said, "Oh, great start by Forest," and then I
Do
think
you know
maybe
what?
Sheffield United equalised not long after.
I might have to check the timings on this, but I think your message came through as the ball hit the back of the net. Honestly, I think it was bang on. So
Oh my
sorry if I
God.
didn't reply, but
He was like,
I felt like telling you to fuck off. Right. Um, but yeah, really like such an important win. And actually, in hindsight, although we made hard work of it, good for our morale and a good test of character that we pulled through. Got the result.
Yeah. I agree. I think it doesn't. Those sorts of games, like it doesn't. Literally, it does not matter how you win.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. Yeah. You know on paper you're a better team than Sheffield United. You know that you should win, but it doesn't always work like that. So just getting the 3 points on the board, I think, is so important. And yeah, even though it's not good for, like I said to you, I think in a message, didn't I? It's not good for your blood pressure, but there's nothing like a 90th minute winner in terms of how it feels at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. That was huge. Yeah, I was dancing around the lounge when Chris Wood like nodded that in, and what a header, by the way. I don't know if you've seen it. You said,
Yeah, amazing header.
really, really top header that was.
Yeah.
And a shout to Serge Aurier as well for the 2 assists.
Mm.
He's got a good cross on him. I think he was well known at PSG before he went to Spurs. Like his sort of domain was to cross it in for Cavani. Like basically, they just scored loads of goals with Aurier down the right, crossing it in, and Cavani heading it in. Like so, he's got that in his locker.
Yeah.
And he pulled it out on Friday night.
How did you feel when? Because Chris Wood come on for a 1 year? Have I got that right?
Yeah, he did. Well, 1 year he's like barely fit.
Right.
So it was surprising he managed to get as many minutes as he did. Sorry, one sec.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
But yeah, he put a shift in. He's only just come back. From sort of an ankle injury, I think.
Right.
But like I think we mentioned in another episode, like Chris Wood is not a bad striker to have coming off the bench.
Doesn't seem like it. Yeah, he's not. Yeah.
And he did exactly what Chris Wood does.
Yeah.
You know, he was a big man in the box, and he tucked away a header. So can't really ask for much more than that.
It reminds me of when we used to have someone like Bentner on the bench to come on and sort of do a similar kind of job.
Yeah, exactly. I guess if you're knackered as well, and it's sort of in the 90th minute, and you've been defending for your life for 90 minutes, for a big lump like that to come on and sort of muscle you around, it can't be much fun for a centre back, you know.
No, yeah. And that's just to go back to the first guy, actually, if that's right. That's a 1 year six game in a row that he scored, right? I think.
He's on fire. He's on fire.
Yeah. He's going to break Jamie Vardy's record.
I know. Do you know what? I'm not even thinking about. I need to get more on top of that. My initial worry is that if he carries on the way he is, he'll be snapped up in January and we'll lose a striker. But that's just my negative, like my default negativity kicking in. Like just enjoy him while he's here. But I think minimum requirement from a 1 year this season is 15 goals. He's looking clinical in front of goal. He's looking like he's getting better game on game. He's quick for a big guy. He's got a good touch. Really good at holding up the ball. He's just looking like a really good signing. Generally feeling positive. Although if you had spoken to me on Friday night, you would have got a different picture, I think.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so you would have been a bit more negative, would you? But now that like the dust has settled on the game, you're able to kind of, you feel a bit different about it.
I think it's just for quite a large chunk of the game, Sheffield United had us rattled, and we did lose our heads. We just kept giving the ball away. We just couldn't. We lost our composure. Cooper made a couple of changes midway through the second half. He brought Yates on, which was huge. And a shout out to him as well. He just keeps proving himself at this level, and people keep doubting him because he's just so. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Like technically, he's never going to light the Premier League up. He's not. He's a really basic footballer technically, but he is just so good at getting in the right places at the right time defensively. Scuppering the opponent's attacks, just being a nuisance. He's just the best. He's the best at that. And that in itself is worth a bit of money, you know. It's worth a lot in a team. So when he came on, he disturbed their rhythm.
Mm.
and by that time they were sort of getting a bit tired, and it was, I think it was him coming on that swayed it back in our favour. So yeah, there was a large chunk of negativity in the middle of the game, but there's some definite positives to take from it. So
Mm.
happy,
Mm.
happy, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one other thing I was going to mention in terms of the game as well was it was a bit of a turning point actually, wasn't it? Sheffield United missed that one-on-one basically, and Matt Turner did a pretty amazing save. Like his hand was so strong,
I
really
know, I
strong
know,
hand.
I know. He's looked good, Matt Turner. He's
Mm.
looked good. He doesn't look like much of a talker,
Mm.
although it's difficult to tell from the telly. But he's made some good stops. He's a good shot stopper, and such a big save,
Yeah.
because that was just at the point where we were kind of falling apart, and they kept playing these long balls over the top, like Sunday League, back to Sunday League, back to basics. They just kept doing it,
Mm.
and our defenders just couldn't hack it. They didn't know
Mm.
what to do, and I heard the commentators saying on Friday night that, like, sometimes the simplest balls are the most effective, and Sheffield United just kept lobbing it over the top, and Worrell and McKenna were getting themselves in all sorts of trouble, just turning themselves away from goal, and tangling themselves up. And yeah, they just played a long ball over the top. Worrell and McKenna just didn't talk to each other. They bashed into each other, and I can't remember the name of their striker, but he went clean through on goal, 1-on-1, and yeah, Turner made a really, really good save. So that was
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Was. Are they going to be as bad as everybody thinks? Do you think Sheffield United, or are they going to surprise some people, or do you think
Well,
they're
they're going to struggle
so?
because they don't have the depth. They don't have the depth in their squad. However, what I saw from them on Friday night is they're gonna play to their strengths as much as possible, and what they've got is a really enthusiastic, motivated group of players who give it all for 90 minutes, and they don't really give you much time on the ball. So they
Mm.
make it as scrappy as possible. They're quite high octane. I can imagine at Bramall Lane, and I think Bramall Lane is quite a raucous stadium as well. So
Mm.
they're going to have their moments this season if they play like that, and they're not going to be walkovers. They're not going to be pushovers. Um,
Mm. Mm.
and they've got people like Stuart McCall on the bench, like their coach and stuff, like just a fiery Scot, just giving it large on the sideline. So it's
Yeah,
always going to be one of those games this season for any team where it's going to be like, okay, it's going to be a tough 90 minutes, but we should win.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's how I see it.
I can see it being a hard game, but Bramall Lane, I guess, as you say, if they've got any chance of staying up, then they're gonna have to win their home games, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to rely on their home form, and they need a new striker. But I think the two strikers they had playing Friday night were like had no Premier League experience, and they were like 21 years old.
God,
So, I think that 1-on-1 where the save that Turner made was incredible, but if that was a more established striker, I think we would have been 2-1 down. Um,
yeah, 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 yeah.
so yeah,
I'm glad you guys won, mate. I think that's such a big win just in terms of how the Premier League perceive you as well, if that makes sense, right? Because if you'd have lost at home to Sheffield United, it would have been, oh God, like Forest, they're definitely going to be in a relegation battle. They're probably, I guess, maybe some people would be saying you guys are doomed, if you're losing that game.
yeah,
But to kind of win that, it almost kind of like separates you in some way from certainly from the three teams that have just come up.
yeah.
Yeah, big.
No, I'm more positive having watched Everton. I managed to watch a bit of Aston Villa v Everton, and I've got to say Everton were absolutely appalling. Like,
Yeah,
they really were so below the standard that you need to be. They were just second to every ball against Aston Villa. So, judging on the weekend just gone, we are above Everton in terms of our level at the moment, and that's a positive. Last season we weren't necessarily above them; we were level pegging with them the whole season. So yeah, we've definitely taken a step in the right direction. Yeah, so yeah, generally positive. Generally positive. I've been supporting Forest for all my life, but I've watched them for 23 years. disappoint me. So it's going to take longer than one season for me to shake that off. So like I'm happy. It was a good result. I'm just keeping myself
Feet on the ground.
Probably a bit negative, a bit pessimistic, but yeah, it's a step in the right direction.